Thank you for listening to the Made with Love experiment. My name is Nicole Snow, and I'm the founder and CEO of Darn Good Yarn. This podcast is a look into the lives of makers, women, and entrepreneurs as we dissect what it is that helps us curate life on our own terms. Creativity is not just for some crafting supplies and a pattern. I believe creativity can fuel you to live your best life, and yes, it's all an experiment. Join me as we dive into the world of these special individuals, and my hope is that you take some morsels of encouragement and empowerment so you can go and create your best life. Hey everyone, it's Nicole Snow. I'm the founder and CEO of darngoodyarn.com, and I have an awesome guest for us today on the Made with Love experiment. And it's Melinda Byrd, and she is the founder of Bird Call Studio. And I am so excited to have you on our show today. Like, I'm a fangirl. We met at a Stitches event over in, it was Connecticut last year? Hartford, yeah. How can I forget the traffic of Hartford? And I remember going up to you, and you had a beautiful display like right in front. And I was like, is this like rug hooking? And you were like, no, come sit down and let me show you everything. And so I don't even want to tell your story. I would love for you to tell everyone what your studio, what your business is all about, because I am completely now hooked into your world of making rugs, and it's just so exciting for me.
That's exciting for me to hear, because part of my mission is to share what I know. And I learned from my grandparents when I was a little kid, and they started importing supplies for making Rhea rugs from Sweden the year I was born. And so I grew up playing with yarn and matching colors, and they made me design my first. I wanted to make a Rhea rug, and they said, no, you design your own. And so they gave me for a Christmas present all the supplies I needed for one pillow. It was a big pillow, but it took me a while to do, but that was my first designed rug. But anyway, I worked with them in their later years, and Rhea rug making was not so easy to find at that time, and it was not like the hot fashion in the magazines at that time. So it kind of fell by the wayside. And so my grandparents passed away. My parents sold a business. So they asked if I wanted it. And I said, no, I've got my own career. And then 30 years later, I realized that I knew something that a lot of people didn't know about how to do it. And so I started sharing it in a video. And the video just has been seen by well over 500,000 people. And they're contacting me saying, how do you do this? So I'm writing a book. But in the meantime, I was running a studio and providing artwork for a lot of customers. So that's my juggle, is running the studio, trying to be what other people want me to be as the artist, but also getting the information out. Yeah. And there's nobody else right now who can teach what I can teach.
I found that so fascinating. And like, I want to get into the history of Rhea rugs as well, because that in itself, like I have told that story that you told me. So it's like, it's like old school storytelling where like it kind of passes from one to another.
Good. Yeah.
But the history of Rhea is so interesting. For people who don't know about it, can you talk a little bit about what it is? And that's a rug right behind you too. That's one of your, that was featured, right? A Tree of Life.
Yeah, that was in the show. And this is going to be on the cover of my book.
I hope so. It's so beautiful.
You saw it here, folks. The history, the oldest it goes back is to the Viking days, and just the logic of once people started to weave, knowing how a pile of shag on a weave makes something a whole lot warmer than a flat weave. And so where they were wearing sheep skins or animal hides at one point, they're very hard to clean. They don't bend easily. So people started to weave with some shag, just wool, fleece, maybe tucked into the fibers of the warp and beat down. And that was the very beginning, sort of as clothing. Yeah. And sleigh coverings and boat Rheas. I mean, out in the boats, it was freezing cold. And these Rheas, the woven Rheas, were very insulative. Mm-hmm. So then they gradually started to become more decorative over the centuries. Vikings were bringing rugs from Persia and the monasteries and bringing them home and like, hey, this is a cool rug. Oh, I can do a design like that. So designs developed, and it's mostly, from my understanding, Sweden and Norway as the main developers of the Rhea rug, and then Finland joined in later and made it more of an art form than the practical form.
I remember reading at one point too that like women would make the rug. They would make a Rhea rug and they would get married on it. Like that was like the wedding. Like I don't know if dowry is the right word, but they would get married, and then you have the rug, to show off your craftiness, I guess.
Yeah. And if they couldn't do it because they didn't have the ability or the loom, they would hire weavers who go from town to town weaving rugs for other people.
That's
the wedding rug. And so they would lay them on their wedding bed or on the bed, and they just kept them warm, face down, so the pile was holding the air pockets. And in Finland, apparently, I learned from one woman, they hung them on a wall in their home until a spouse died, and then it went on their bed.
Oh, wow.
So I'm learning lots of different things, and some might be just in certain areas, but it's in the book, but a lot of it's just stories.
And this is in no way medical advice here. That's my disclaimer. But I'll tell you, I was dealing with a little bit of like arthritis in my right wrist. And it was actually holding me back from doing a lot of like my arts and crafts. I had like a little bit of a workplace injury at Darn Good Yarn a year ago. Everyone laughed. It was because I was taping boxes, and that repetitive motion like really messed my wrist up. And I actually sat down and I just started really ripping and tearing into one of the kits I got from you. And I'm going to tell you, like, I'm convinced that it helped all of my stabilizer muscles, because it's not, I don't want to say it's not a wussy craft. It's like you have to put some oomph into that, and that I don't have wrist issues anymore. And I'm like, I'm convinced that it was because of that motion, and you're like cranking that yarn through.
You get biceps developed when you work on a Rhea rug too.
Yeah, you gotta be a hardy girl to do Rhea rug making.
Like almost half my customers, maybe a third, are men, believe it or not.
Oh, and yeah.
Which is unusual for fiber arts. Generally.
You know what, you're right about that. You're right about that. And the other thing I think is interesting to point out, like what I really like about this rug making technique is that you're holding usually three different colors. I think that's probably the newer, I think that's what you were leading into, where 3 different colors and usually 3 different weights of yarn as well, of wool yarn.
Right.
And that's how you're getting that really beautiful shade. So if the people that are watching this, maybe for our listeners who are just listening on podcast, you'll have to come in. Oh, you have? This is perfect.
This is a threading card. And it shows like how it's like a palette, the Rhea artist palette, as you know, but like you put 3 strands on a needle and you can get a huge spectrum of color.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it creates just a lot of really beautiful depth. That I think, like people who are into rug hooking, if they do their own dyeing of their own wool, like they kind of like to get that multi-tonal effect. Like you achieve the same just by mixing the 3 different types of yarns and the different tones off of that, which is just so cool.
Yeah, it is. And it's hardy. It just feels so good in your hands.
I totally love it. I love how vibrant it is. It's so different. And when I met you, I have been thinking about, like, in terms of Darn Good Yarn, what the next step is. And I see, so in India, we deal a lot with yarns from India, and you see often art sort of dying out or the quality diminish over time because the next generation isn't there to backfill and learn and make that art better. Like, it's just dying off because, the kids go move to the big cities and they go live their life. And so then and it's happening around the globe, these old school, like, folk arts are dying off. And I'm like, man, I've been just putting out into the world. And after I met you, I'm like, okay, I think I really have to do this. Is some kind of show or documentation that really displays each of these handicrafts that are just have these limited change like these limited supplies like out into the world,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Well,
how do you,
experiment with your yarn too, because there's no reason it has to be Rhea rug yarn. That's my experience with, I use Rhea rug yarn, but you have so many yarns at your fingertips. Imagine playing with what
yeah,
you have.
yeah, that's going to be the next step. I have a 2-year-old as well, so it's like,
Wow.
and I get it. I'm sure a lot of crafters can like identify, like I'm sort of like a squirrel. I'm like, oh, this craft, okay, and then next craft. Like, let me try.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your other studio, and I think this is like really would be very interesting for a lot of our listeners, because a lot of people, I find, they juggle a lot, and so they're either juggling between motherhood and their business, or maybe a full-time other job. So you have your actual, is that like more of like your full-time job, if you want to call that, or?
I was doing, but the Rhea has totally taken off with a huge demand. And what I was doing before, which was mostly printmaking, carving woodcuts and lino cuts and printing on paper, and also printing on clothing.
Cool.
And the clothing, the t-shirts, they had a huge following, and they still have a huge following, but I just can't keep up with that. So I'm selling them on Etsy and let people know exactly what's there, and they get that very shirt that they see. But I also, I have painted on glassware, pretty exciting work, not normal stuff, but like portraits and flowers, and so glassware. I make floor cloths, which are canvases that you walk on,
Mm-hmm.
and I love floor cloths. I could go in so many directions too, but the Rhea has just, it's like that's what everybody who contacts me wants. Many emails a day.
Wow.
And I've met so many people around the world through
That's
this.
That's so cool. So you have the demand, obviously, and you have sort of the family lineage with it. Is that the calling, or is artistically like this is where it's brought, like this is where I don't want to say full circle because that's corny, but it kind of seems like that a little bit.
I never intended that to happen, but it happened, and I knew it happened. I knew it was happening as it was happening. And that was when I had to make a decision, first of all, to write the book and to try to revive this art. But I knew it was going to totally take all my time, and I would have to give up everything else I did, pretty much. And it was a decision. Yeah, it was really difficult. And I still think, well, when the book's done and when the excitement settles out, then I'll paint paintings again, and I'll make floor cloths, and I'll do this and that. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. But well, if I teach more people to teach and kind of get this snowball effect,
Mm-hmm.
I'll lighten my load, because other people can promote it and do it and get more stores and shops and art centers selling the supplies and keeping it alive. I feel like my mission, and what I hope to kind of do for my grandparents who are long gone now, is prove to them that they really did. They were on the cutting edge of a really incredible craft, and it wasn't there for them after a while. After a couple of decades, it was tough for them, and they kind of gave up. And I felt sad for them. But here is just, I'm becoming my grandparents.
So what would you like if you had an ask, like, we have the Darn Good Yarn community, like, have you started to train teachers already? Like, do you have a certification course, or?
Well, that's the book. The book is going to be the start, because I can send that out around the world. And then once people, because people don't know what Rhea is. Most people say Raya. It doesn't really matter, but I can't draw people in to learn something that they have no idea what it is. And it's so easy to fall in love with Rhea, as you know.
And it took me seriously 5 minutes. And that was with like an audience, because you were doing a demonstration, and it was like the last thing you want to do. Think about learning how to knit in front of a whole bunch of people, and you're like, oh my God, this is going to turn out terribly. And I was nervous, and like, seriously, like it took no time at all. Like,
yeah,
it's a great craft.
So I have to keep getting it out in that type of way, and then have someone that I teach say, I really like this. This is where I want to go in life. And then bring that group together and teach everything I know. Although every time I teach everything I know pretty much. And the book has all the details. But
Right.
like I'm teaching starting tomorrow an 8-week class at a retirement community that I taught at last year. And I mean, it happens to be all women that sign up, but they design their own. They learn the math, which could be daunting, but it's not really that bad. So it's really rewarding for me, but they probably won't take it and take the ball and run. I need a younger audience who will do more with it.
Yeah.
And keep it alive.
We can
I don't know
help with that.
yeah. One little story I'll share with you. This morning, I got an email from a friend in Sweden named Mia. Mia contacted me about 3 years ago, and she said she had found someone had given her a Rhea rug kit, and she didn't know how to do it, and she couldn't find anybody in her community who knew anything about it. And she asked me to teach her, and I did. And I thought, and that's when I decided I have to write a book, because if people in Sweden can't find the answer to how to make a kit. So she emailed me today and said, well, also she gets my newsletter. In my newsletter, I asked for people who know a little bit about Rhea to offer to be a mentor, where if somebody in their community buys a kit and doesn't know what to do, or buys supplies and doesn't know what to do, I hook them up. I link them up so they can help each other. So Mia got an email from another woman in Sweden who bought a kit from me just a few months ago. And that woman needed interpretation, actually, of the Norwegian instructions. And Mia helped her and solved her problem. Which is like, that's exactly what I need.
I love that. That is so cool. It's, you're building community too. And I think that's the essence of I think so much of our crafting. It's almost like crafting is the secondary effect of this community of individuals, like just trying to create. And that's cool. It's cool that you're doing that.
Yeah.
How many how many people a year do you think, or a month do you think, get hooked onto Rhea?
That's a little tough, but I mean, maybe I might start maybe 2 or 3 people a week on a new project.
That's
just, I mean, it's not that many, but then I get on the video, I'll get comments of all these people who I've never seen this craft before. This is where I want to go in life. And so I see the comments that come on YouTube video, which is kind of reaching out and reaching to people. And then I've started a Facebook group off my Facebook page, Byrd Call Studio. And the group has about 90 people who have signed up, and they talk to each other. I've kind of put it in their hands, and they help each other.
That's awesome.
So that's really rewarding for me.
So you get the teachers, right? Say you get the teachers in place, or you get some kind of cool certification in the works, and like, okay, now you have this. Do you go back to the art that you were working on that you sort of put on hold, or what do you think would be the next step?
I don't know, but the main point of that is I would be able to do whatever I want.
Right.
And so, and I've not been designing new Rheas lately, because for time, practically, every hour I spend on Rhea is for somebody else at this point. So for me to design something for myself, well, I could design it, turn it into a kit, but it takes time. So I have designs in my head that I really would be dying to do. But also, I mean, I'm getting older, and things I carve, and it takes tools and hands. I just had hand surgery a few weeks ago, and I'm back to normal again. But I do a lot of physical stuff with my hands, and so I can't do everything forever. So painting may be where I head eventually, but I think it's going to be Rhea. I think it's going to be teaching. I become an evangelist when I talk about Rhea. People have told me that, and I can't help it.
You are. I mean, like I'm in. I have to tell you, I had an old quilt rack in my house, and I turned it into my Rhea stand. So I hooked the rug up, and because I was finding like I was moving it around my house, and then I said, okay, like I need something that's where I could sit at a table, but my table isn't always available. And I've gotten like quite through the rug, so like I have maybe oh, maybe not even a third left to complete. So you have this big heavy rug on you. And then I usually have my daughter kind of hanging on me. So I took this quilt stand. I'll have to take a picture of it actually, because I think you'd be interested. And I
Yeah.
clamped it on both the top and bottom. So now it's like almost like as if you had a tapestry and you sewed it onto a thing. Like I just sort of clamped it, and then I can work on it very quickly now. Like, that's,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. I'll say that.
Yeah. You should post that picture of that on the Friends of Rhea, because that's the kind of thing people share. Then they show what they do. It's fun.
Yeah, and it's nice and ergonomic because the quilt rack is like exactly at like a nice height of a desk where you're not hunched over, and it's nice on your wrist.
Yeah. Very smart.
I'll show that to you. Yeah, I just think it's so cool what you're doing, and I understand the sort of stretch between having something you want to do and then like sort of your mission at hand. I have a lot of similar feelings, like even in running the business every day, where you have this business at its own little microcosm. You have your employees and stock and all of this. And then I have these like passion projects that I'm like, well, if I get to this place, then I'll have time for this. Exactly what you're talking about, like being able to revive other crafts is really where my heart keeps tugging towards, and finding things like that. But I'm like, oh, but I have this business thing I have to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I want to read books. I'm collecting all these books I want to read, having nothing to do with Rhea, but they sit in my bookshelf until I have time.
Yeah.
But,
I think, I think part of it's a technology, an answer from technology to help us. That's what I'm learning, at least. And then, finding the right people to help us too, who are just as passionate.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning a little from you, reaching out this way to so many people.
Yeah. Hey, you might find someone that can completely revolutionize the way you're doing it. And
yeah. I will.
Can you show people just, I don't know if it's available to you, but for everyone who's watching, to show just the back of the Rhea rug, because I think that's actually the coolest. Well, I shouldn't say the coolest. It's unexpected.
Yeah, this is a little one that I have.
Yes,
this is
I bought that one for my mother-in-law, that kit for my mother-in-law for her birthday. I got major daughter-in-law points, very needed daughter-in-law points for.
So like this is one I drew in the backing as stars, and here's the front of it.
That's so cool.
And just for the fun of it, I'll show you the same in gray. I don't know if you've seen the gray one.
Oh, I haven't seen the gray one.
But that's all natural grays.
Wow.
And on the back.
Now, are the sheep like special sheep, or what's special about the wool?
Well, the wool on these backings is from Norway, and it's the Spelso sheep, which is in the direct line of evolution in Norway. There's a Vilso and Spelso, and they're like a branch. So it's coarse. They are rugged sheep that don't need pampering. It's wool that would never be used as a sweater around your neck because it would be scratchy, itchy, and
I feel that's like my spirit animal, kind of rugged and harsh.
Well, yeah, you're a Rhea girl. I know. I've heard that when they had these sheep that were really coarse, and there's one called the Rhea 4 from Sweden. It's a very rare sheep now. There's only, I think, like 2,000 of them left in the world.
Wow.
And so that's one of the breeds that really did almost die off, but it was saved. But there are other sheep breeds that had such coarse wool that their hair wool was used to make the backings. It was the only thing they could think of doing with this wool was make it something very coarse, totally waterproof, for sleds and boats.
Yeah.
But
that's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
We're going to where did there was a video of you with this, you were making that. Where can people find your videos and things like that?
That's the only video I've made to completion, and it's on YouTube. And the best way to find it is just go to YouTube and type Rhea rug making,
Okay.
and you will find it.
And that's RYA for anyone who's maybe just like listening and walking on a walk right now or something. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I've been working on some other videos with the same guy who did that video. But we put them aside until the book's done because I don't want to get too frazzled. But I'm thinking as a coaching mechanism for people, like once they start making a rug, I'm working on a video that will have all the tips and tricks, just this time savers.
Cool.
What's the word now they use for
Hacks.
tips and tricks?
Hacks.
What is it?
Hacks?
Hacks, yeah. Rhea hacks. But there's lots of hacks that people, they figured them out on their own, but it's just, why not learn it from a video and share it with somebody else?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do a little video of how I set up my cold stand, because it totally increased my speed. And that's what I needed, because like my little 2-year-old, she has red hair. So it's just like, you see this little poof of red hair and like, you're like, okay, I have 20 minutes to craft right now. Like, you need to get after it, Nicole. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's smart. I know they used to sell them, I think in Sweden, but Norway's catalog, it's like a very old-fashioned directions that come with the kits, show a woman dressed in 1950s clothing working on a rack. And I've never seen that rack, anybody using it. It's just in that little picture, but I know that people use them. But you've developed your own. That's really cool.
I'll take a picture tonight and I'll email it to you just so you can see what I'm doing.
Cool. I like that.
This has been so much fun. I hope that everyone goes to check out what you're doing. Erica, who works with me here, she's going to post the links to how anyone can find you.
Excellent.
You said through your Etsy store is really the best way to do that.
Through Etsy, they can see everything and read about everything and see 10 pictures of everything. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah. And I'll tell anyone that's starting, if you're even interested, Melinda, you have some really just nice basic kits. Like, you don't need a lot. Like, it's not like other crafts where you need to have, I don't know, like a loom or anything else. Like, you can just sit there with the yarn and your needles and do your thing. So if you just get the kit truly has everything you need in it, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
you don't have to do swatches and all of that.
My hope is people make a kit and then say, I can make my own, and then just get yarn, colors, and just design their own. And
but your kits are awesome. I got your water swirl and I'm like, I cannot wait to get this started. So
that's a fun one.
Yeah, I'm finishing up the other one still. So this is, I collect them. I'm like you with the books. It's like you just collect them and you're like, I will have all this time in the world at some point to get all of my crafting done. Said every single crafter. So
you have to teach your daughter and get her doing it.
Yeah. We just learned how to plant seeds last night in soil. So we're making progress.
Good for you. That's cool.
All right. Well, this has been so much fun. I always like to end the shows with one special question. Is what's the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
I think there was a time when I was trying to see if I could make it as an artist, and I wanted to be as good as other people. And I think finally somebody said, be yourself. It's the individual of you that is the essence of you, and that's what shines. And there's no being like other people that can make your essence come through and make art joyful. So I try to be myself.
That's cool. It's a great message. It's hard, and it's always a good reminder, because we're our own worst critics sometimes.
Yeah. Don't judge yourself. Just let things flow and love what you do and smile and just share it with others.
That's so cool. This has been so fun. Like I feel like I'm reconnecting with an old friend. Like, even though we've only met that one other time, but it's just, you have so much love in what you do, and it's really refreshing to see someone have so much joy in our creative industry. And sometimes it does get this like kind of weird commercialization, and watching people on Instagram, and it does get it gets highly competitive, and I think it holds people back more than frees them to really be themselves. And I think that you're a really great beacon of light for a lot of crafters and makers out there.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed talking with you today
Yeah.
and
thank
everybody.
you.